And a wonderful Monday evening, everybody. Chris McDonald with you on this Monday, the 16th day of October, 2023. We're grateful to have you tonight, and we are grateful to have this gentleman back with us. It's been a while since we've had him, and I was thinking about guests over the weekend, and his name was right at the top of my forehead. Ask him for this week. Michael Jaffe, the author of the Two Israels Project. Michael, it is so good to have you back. It's been a while, buddy, and with the events going on in the world tonight, and really, I had been wanting to have this discussion that we're going to have tonight, and I guess the Lord just works these things out the way He does, and I'm just grateful that you're here tonight. We've got a lot to talk about with Israel, talk about your family as well and some things. Good to have you. Welcome back to the Mac Files. Your Mac Files family, so we just give you the virtual hug and say hello to you. It's great to have you on this Monday night. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Chris. Thanks for having me.
It is grateful to have you. I want to start. I know that you've got family in Israel. They were not necessarily. I mean, Israel's so closed in everywhere, as you said, as you told me before the show, is closed, so it affected everybody. But the events of last Saturday, which the 7th of October, this horrible, barbaric attack on the nation of Israel, and not just the nation, Michael, but this was a barbaric attack on the Jewish people in general. It was a barbaric attack on humanity. It was a barbaric attack on society in general. I would even say it was a barbaric attack on every one of us listening tonight, because the things that were done and what happened in that attack by Hamas and Hezbollah, and I'm going to say Iran too, because I believe Iran is behind every bit of this.
Absolutely.
This is a call to arms, that we fight this, we eradicate this threat of terror, because if we don't, it's not going to be just the Gaza Strip area of the country or of Israel that's going to be affected by this. This is going to be exported all over this world, and Israel has got to I feel like we have got to have her back in this all the way through to the end, because it's on her to deal with this, and I'm with her tonight. Our prayers are with her, prayers for the peace of Jerusalem. But tell us a little bit how you felt, and then tell us about your family, because your family was not necessarily directly affected, but indirectly. And tell us about how they are tonight, and good to have you tonight, and again, our prayers for your nation.
You put so much on me. Wow, that's all those points, but it's good. My family is, thank God, they are okay. I have 3 daughters who live in Tel Aviv, and I have a son who is an army medic, a combat medic, who has been called up, and he serves in Shechem, in Nablus. The Arab word for the town is Nablus, which is in Judea, and things are very tense, because they are, not only is Israel fighting an enemy to the south and is almost fighting an enemy to the north, but Israel is also fighting an enemy within itself, and I'm talking about the West Bank, and the people there. They could rise up at any time. So far, they're not. It's interesting to see what the Arabs of Judea and Samaria will do, because while Mahmoud Abbas talks about how he opposes Hamas, it's important to note that there's not much difference between the Palestinian Authority and Hamas. And the other thing is that Hamas and the Palestinian Authority share a lot of key personnel. So anything can happen. It's going to be whatever strategic goals they think they can get away with. Now, it's interesting that you said that what is at stake in this battle. A really good way of looking at what's at stake is to look at some of these protests around the world. Look at London. London, in the midst of London, tens of thousands showed up, and they started saying, "Gas the Jews." In London, that's unthinkable. And the fact that the Metro Police couldn't really stop them, it makes you think, what is the future of a country like Great Britain, who has its own huge migrant problem? We're talking about fundamentalist Muslims and Islamists, not just Muslims who might just want to practice their religion freely and in peace, but Islamists, political Islam, which seeks to conquer. Look at what's happening in France. France passed a rule basically saying that you could not demonstrate and vocally support Hamas after that outrage from a week ago. That's not stopping them.
That's right.
They're coming into the streets. So right now, this battle, this is a line in the sand. If Israel does not completely defeat Hamas, eliminate them as a relevant fighting force with the capacity to do untold damage, Israel will have failed. Not only will Israel have failed, but the entire world is in jeopardy. The entire West is in jeopardy if they don't hold that line.
No, that's well said, and I totally agree with you, and I think, you know, it wasn't just England. I heard somebody tell me today that Germany, of all places, with a let's just say that Germany, and when you say Germany and the Jews, that's you all hold your breath as to what's coming next. But they were telling the Jewish people of their population that they didn't need to act like Jews on the street, not to bring attention. And I thought to myself, that's the most insulting thing that you could tell the Jewish population in Germany. Why don't you protect the Jewish population instead of telling the Jewish population not to act Jewish? That is, again, the insult, and that's sort of where we're going with this tonight, because, you know, you mentioned the front. I mean, and it is a battle for Hamas and the butchery, and we could spend a whole show just talking about that, but I think the bigger war, Michael, is the war that we're fighting in propaganda and this onslaught of, I've never seen anti-Semitism be so blatantly accepted right now, and some of the biggest lies that are being put out there about Israel, and biggest lies about the state of Israel, the biggest lies about the IDF, the biggest lies about these babies. I've seen people literally even today, on chat rooms, questioning the validity of whether babies had their heads cut off, questioning whether families were burned alive, questioning whether Israel, you know, you had people that were slaughtered, kids slaughtered in front of their parents, parents slaughtered in front of their children. One daddy saying that, you know, he would rather his daughter die than to be held captive in Gaza. And it wasn't just him. There were several people that said that. And when you bring a nation and you bring a people to that state, when they are that terrorized, and that's what the purpose of terrorism is. They terrorize their victims. But this went beyond anything of just a few suicide bombers going into Jerusalem or going into a city and blowing themselves up. Michael, this was an assault on the humanity of not just Israel, not just the Jewish people, but again, I say it again, I repeat it, it was an assault on our humanity in the world. But yet, you've got, we say they're clear-thinking people, we say they're intellectual people, but I question their intellect. They're backing the barbarism to slur Israel, and that bothers me. It damnably is ugly, and it irritates me. It irritates my soul to the core tonight, and I know it's got to irritate you. I'm a Gentile American. I love the Jewish people, but I'm not Jewish. But it grieves me to the core to see the lies and propaganda that is coming against your nation tonight.
It's not just a Jewish thing.
It's not. Thank you.
It's a matter of principle and decency.
Amen.
And these, you have to understand also what happens when you take when a hostage is taken. When a hostage is taken, it is basically taking away the humanity of everyone who cares about that hostage. It's taking away their agency. It's taking away their free will. It's making them work against themselves. This brings us back to 2006, when Gilad Shalit was abducted into Gaza. And his father, Noam Shalit, made a big deal. He almost brought down a government in order to make Netanyahu basically release 1,000 terrorists with blood on their hands. Now, what did they do? They traded a life for an entire future generation. They traded a life of one hostage for hundreds of future hostages, because if they had said no, if they had gone in and okay, I mean, I can only be happy for the Shalits that Gilad survived, but at what cost?
At what cost?
Cost is immense. If Israel, now the U.S. just basically offered up $6 billion for hostages from Iran. But that's not the only money they gave to Iran. That's only the money that's in Qatar. They've already given up tens of billions of dollars through different channels to help to basically bring Iran into the fold of the civilized West. There are stupid people in the administration who still believe this, who still don't see what's right in front of them, that these people are not Western thinking. It's the same thing. It's like today I was listening on the radio. I was driving and I was listening on the radio, and these people were saying, well, we have to protect the Palestinians in Gaza because they're innocent. And the guy said, well, it's only a very few of them who support Hamas. The typical Palestinian Gazan wants to live a nice life, wants a better life for their children and all that. This is so far from the truth.
Amen.
There are videos, you can see these videos posted yesterday of women whose sons, of Gazan women whose sons have been killed while they were invading southern Israel. And they are proud of their sons. They are happy for their sons. They celebrate the virgins that their sons are now enjoying in the afterlife, basically. And also the poll data of Gazans is that 53% of them support Hamas, at least half, more than I think the numbers are greater.
Absolutely.
You look at their street, you look at the videos of what's going on in the streets, they bring their children to confront, to basically make a show of confronting Israel, and they're bringing their 10-year-olds with them. In what society does a parent bring a child like this into a danger zone and act happy about it? So these people are not these are not the type of people who see reason, not our reason. Their reason is completely consistent. They only live for death. And they say this, you can hear this in their videos. They welcome death. They live for death because in death they will achieve their martyrdom.
That's right. That's right. Buddy, that's right. And not only that, but the world, and I want to go into this thing because it feeds what you just described is what's feeding this propaganda war. Because again, the lies, what you described at the very beginning of your statement is exactly what the West is being told. And sadly, many in the West are buying this, that these are just a bunch of humble Palestinian families. And I'm just going to run a few of these off, and I'm going to let you address them because this is, I remember the 2006-7 Hezbollah war. I remember it being done then. I'm a history person, and I've read up on the wars of 48, 53, 67, and 73. And it's pretty much, the world ain't changed too much. Israel's always been the one viewed as the aggressor. I don't mean to God, I wish this never happens, but if somebody would have detonated a 2-ton bomb in the middle of Jerusalem and thousands and tens of thousands of Israelis would have perished, Israel would still be looked upon as a aggressor tonight, which is hideously a untruth lie. It is just a damnable lie, and I'm trying to mute my conversation tonight because my anger is up about this. My anger is deep for the lies. But one of the big lies is that Israel is the occupier, when, to be frank with the world out there tonight, that they need to read their history, Israel's not occupying a thing. The Palestinian people have never had a better life until Israel ran that Gaza. And under Israeli conditions, they've never had a better life. The Hamas and the PLO are so corrupt. The Palestinian people have lived in abject poverty under those administrations and death. You mentioned the culture of death. They chose that culture. They chose that culture. And I'm going to just say it like this. It's going to sound a little cold tonight. Every ounce of blood the way I look at it, every ounce of blood that is spilt in Gaza is not on Israel. It's on Hamas. Hamas brought this on themselves. They brought this war to Israel. Israel didn't bring this war to Hamas. I remember somebody telling me recently, if the Palestinians wanted peace, they'd have peace. If Israel wanted to destroy the Palestinians wouldn't be here right now, Michael. It's just the way it is, brother. What say you, my friend?
I say that a big phrase is ethnic cleansing. They're claiming that Israel is dealing with ethnic cleansing. The only ethnically cleansed area is the Palestinian-controlled areas, because a Jew is not allowed to set foot in there.
Come
on. And if Israel is engaged in ethnic cleansing of Arabs, they're doing a really crappy job of it.
That's right.
Because the Muslim population has grown very healthy and grown massively, and they have a longer expected lifspan, and their infant mortality rate is way down because they live in Israel.
That's right.
The good part about this is that we're able to see that there are quite a lot of Israeli Arabs who support the state. That yes, there is definitely a problem, but you see a lot of Israeli Arabs talking about their service in the IDF. At this point, the largest growing sector in terms of the training of physicians and pharmacists is among the Arabs in Israel. Arabs are now comprise the majority of pharmacists in Israel. They are a very large part of the medical staff in hospitals, and they apparently appreciate that. A lot of Arabs do. Now some don't. There is a case of some Hamas supporters actually working as one Hamas supporter was actually working as a physician in Hadassah in Jerusalem. Now he hasn't been fired yet, but it's up for review. I think that's someone who expresses support for people who have butchered your co-citizens, your co-nationalists. You shouldn't have a position of power or authority in that society.
That's right. That's right.
So they, anyway, but they are I believe those are the exceptions. Now, what's going to happen but the other thing is to see a lot of Arabs from the Gulf states, from the United Arab Emirates especially, and a lot of Saudi Arabs are expressing their outright support for Israel, even if the Saudi government isn't ready to normalize yet. And by the way, they are ready to normalize, and they wanted to normalize, but that's one of the reasons why Hamas did what it did when it did, is to stop that. They think they can stop it. Now, I hope to the bottom of my heart that Israel is able to continue on this progress they've had with Saudi Arabia. It will take a lot of courage from the Arab side, because they've conditioned their population for so long to hate Jews and to denounce Israel, that reversing course is no small thing, and they're going to have a challenge ahead of them. But if they can show that their people are better off with that, they might succeed. But they won't succeed if they kowtow to Hamas.
It's a great point. Let me ask you this. Of all the things that you've heard, and you can maybe do a list, maybe top 3, top 4, what are the top 4 lies that you're hearing out there about this war? And now usually, and I'm ready for this, because I guarantee you it's probably going to be the same lies that are always uttered And it's a follow-up question to this, Mike. Like, I understand that they teach this hatred to the Arab kids. I get that they're raised, the Arab children, the Palestinian children are raised to hate Israel. I get it. What I don't get is Americans. How Americans in this nation are saying almost verbatim the same things as the Jew haters of the Arab world. But I'm going to go a little bit further. I'm going to bring up a very tough subject here. I'm hearing rhetoric tonight that anybody that's done just a shallow study of the Holocaust, you ain't got to do a deep study, just a shallow study. And I want you to talk about the connection between Hitler and the Alemanni, because the Arabs, Hitler went to the Arabs, Arabs went to Hitler back in '39, and look, his hatred of Israel, his hate, and it wasn't Israel then, they were Jewish people, it wasn't a nation then, but his hatred of the Jewish people drove him to the Palestinians, and the Palestinians came to Hitler because they both had the same goal. They wanted to annihilate every Jew on the face of this earth. Like, I get the Arab hatred. I get it. That don't shock me. But what I've been appalled at is it's coming from within, and the statements that are being made, Mike, are statements that Hitler made publicly before he exterminated 6 million Jews in gas camps, my friend, in this modern 2023 America.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, then as now, the influence of Karl Marx was very great. Even among the Nazis. The Nazis were socialists also.
Yes.
They wanted to control. They were actually, they called themselves socialists. I think they were socialists, but they were kind of fascist type of socialists in that they wanted to control industry. They were out. They wanted the Nazi effort was to control industry and to make Germany a military industrial powerhouse. And they did everything to make that happen. So there was an element of Marx there in that they felt that the centralized power and the providing things for the people, not through a free market, but through a very controlled marketplace and a controlled people. So the Nazis needed a bad guy, and they had their bad guy in the Jews.
That's right.
Today, Marxism is on the rise and has been on the rise for the last 100 years in the United States, since the days of Herb Crowley, who was an educator, and since the days of the Dewey Decimal System, who was a rabid Marxist, by the way. They had their sights on academia, and they had their sights on the youth and education. And they just went after it year after year, decade after decade, for 100 years. And this today, what we see on college campuses, what we see in schools, this is the result. And the result is a negation of the family, negation of basic rules of decency and truth. So that's how you get what you get, is that the young people, based on their instructors, and get it from their instructors, they get it from schools, they are taught and they believe that somehow gravity doesn't exist. They believe that
right.
That value isn't created through merit. Value is created through ideology. And if you have the right ideology, then you have value. And what they don't realize, and I see these Jews for Palestine, these Jews for Hamas, and these Jews who are saying that the ceasefire must be immediate, and these are radical leftists. You see them, and you see how they've been taught to basically disbelieve their own eyes and their own history. And it is a very powerful thing when you can do that. When you can teach someone that it's almost as if you could teach someone that a man can be a woman if he so desires.
Great point.
And in fact, that battle to make that a fact in education, that to turn it into a fact on the ground that a man can become a woman or a woman can become a man, that is an essential ingredient. That's the most basic ingredient of telling a human being not to trust his own senses and not to accept reality as real. And if you can do that,
excellent point.
You can do anything. You can tell someone anything. You can control them. It's the ultimate hive mentality. It's the ultimate human mass control system. And that's what that's what we're facing. And if America doesn't succeed in holding firm, America still has a huge part of its population that doesn't go for this.
And that's true.
And if they can hold firm, and if they can, right now, you're seeing the collapse of American cities. Then there, in some of these cities, I mean, I'm looking at, I guess, Mayor Adams of New York. He's reaching out. He realizes that his city is an economic, financial, and social failure and a disaster. He wants to reach out because he knows he has to turn it around, because they can't afford another $20 billion spent on housing for migrants and education and healthcare and free money and free phones for migrants. They can't afford this. It's not sustainable. So if we can hold out and be firm and say to the world, you can turn this around, but you have to face facts and you have to grow up, we can win.
Absolutely. What were some of the most grievous things you've heard over the last week about this war?
Well, it's very interesting to watch as the first day that the last Saturday, a week ago Saturday, when it first came out, you had a lot of Hamas videos. They were proud of what they did, and they videotaped themselves.
Exactly.
And they showed the beheading they showed the babies' bodies beheaded. At least one body of the beheaded baby was shown. And these sources of this were Hamas operatives. And then for them to turn around and say, "Oh no, you have no proof. You have no evidence." The evidence came from you.
Exactly right. Thank you.
And to see that's perhaps that is what was typically the Arab anti-Israel propaganda typically is, to turn the truth on its head, to state a fact when it's convenient for you, and then to state the opposite depending on your audience and the point you're trying to make, to be able to just turn around reality. Piers Morgan had some spokesperson, some political spokesperson on, I think it was last night, and this spokesperson was doing exactly that. He was saying, "Where is your proof of this beheaded baby? You have no proof," he was saying. And Piers Morgan would say, "Well, actually, I do, and you provided it." And, "Well, no, I don't trust you. You're a colonizer, and I don't trust you." By the way, colonizer is the new hot word.
Yes.
It
has become that.
Whom you plan to kill. This is something that Scott Adams figured out. That, I mean, the left likes to talk about their dog whistles. Colonizer is a dog whistle for, if you're the colonizer, I have every right to kill you. Now, as long as when they call Israel and Israelis and Jews colonizers in their own land, that's exactly what they're saying. It has nothing to do with the stewardship of the land. It has everything to do with a justification to commit
genocide,
acts of lethal cruelty,
yes,
and be justified because you're fighting colonization. And that is what you're seeing by BLM. You're seeing that from the La Raza movement, the Hispanic movement in the United States, or you saw that from the Hispanic movement. They called the United States the ultimate colonizer because they want to destroy what is the United States and remake it in their own image.
right.
So that's one. Another one is well, the whole thing about how Israelis are bloodthirsty. And why are Israelis bloodthirsty? Because they kill Gazan and Palestinian children. Well, when a terrorist is firing rockets from a school, from an apartment building, from a hospital, and when it has dug tunnels under all of these structures, and by the way, the tunnels are not necessarily the safest for those structures that sit above them. When they do this, they and then they basically goad Israel into reacting because Israel has to remove the threat, because Israel's responsibility is to do just that. True, and for any civilized government, the first responsibility is the protection of its citizens.
Amen.
And if someone is firing at you, you have to take them out. Now, if they're holding up a baby in front of them, you have to, I hate to say it, you have to go through that baby.
You just
and
did.
You have to take out the terrorist. And that's an awful thing to say.
But let me just stop you right there, Mike.
Some other way of doing it.
Yeah, let me stop you right there, and I'm going to tell you something. As bad, as horrible as that is, though, that is on Hamas. That's on the terrorists.
Yes.
It ain't on Israel. And like you say, they put Israel in a no-win, and they know it. And see, what burns me and my hide up and makes my hair from go gray to out is that the media takes that image that you just described, okay, and again, makes a moral equivalent statement. Forget the fact that, again, Jewish babies were having their heads literally lopped off. Infants. I've got a 5-week-old granddaughter that I held this weekend. I wept watching her this weekend because I felt in my heart. I said, there were children this age that these bastards took a knife and literally cut their heads off. And you got these, what's in the media, again, that will take a moral equivalency to something that you just described. Israel trying to destroy the terrorists that did that. And these people have look, they're just animals. They have no sense of humanity. They have no sense of civility. They hold the baby up. Israel kills the terrorists, and in collateral damage in a war, the baby gets killed. Then they call Israel the baby killers and ignore the fact that terrorists were the baby killers. And this is why Israel was even down there to begin with. They were trying to kill the terrorists. Am I right on that?
Absolutely. That's absolutely correct. Now, the third lie is that Israel is somehow arranging all of this to bring in foreigners to fight its battle for it. There is a very famous anti-Semite who happens to be one of these they call it fringe traditional Catholicism. In other words, it's people who never accepted Vatican II, never accepted like the things about that Jews aren't responsible, say, for the crucifixion and things like that. They don't accept that. There's a fellow named E. Michael Jones who is now quoted by a lot of these Hamas people. And E. Michael Jones came out with something a few days ago saying that this is all about Israel trying to bring in American GIs to fight for it. That is another huge lie. And that is something that anti-Semites are basically unifying around.
That's exactly right.
And that's something that you see. And finally, finally you have the whole thing that the Jews aren't really the descendants of the original Judeans. And that they're talking about, you see this in these hashtags, Khazarian mob, the Khuzarites,
Yeah.
were supposedly this nation that converted en masse to Judaism. Whether, and I don't know the history of that. However, I do know that there is DNA evidence of, I mean, I don't have to justify this, but it just so happens that there's DNA evidence linking the Jews of Europe with the Jews of Yemen, with the Jews of Iraq, and all these communities which share genetic markers. It's not just chance. It's not just talk. The word Jew came from the word Judean.
Judean. Judah.
Some countries, I mean, some languages, I mean, the D sound was dropped somewhere along the way. I have my own feelings about why it was dropped, but along the way, Judean became Jew.
Mm-hmm.
It became Juif in French. It became Juda in German, and in Polish, Yid. It was, but by the way, Yid was not necessarily supposed to be a derogatory. It just happened to have all the syllables and all the consonants of the name. Now, Jew doesn't. And I have a feeling that has to do with some English anti-Semitism during the Middle Ages, but it doesn't matter. Point is that that they try to minimize any legitimacy to the claims of the Judean people. I call us Judeans, but the Judean people, the Jewish people, towards the land.
That's right.
That's right. It also goes beyond that. It goes towards the delegitimizing a Jewish right to life.
Thank you. Thank you. That's exactly right, Michael. Go ahead.
And that's also the way they feel about Christians.
Hey, thank you. That's where I was headed next. Go ahead. Because I want to say this, and I'll let you chime in on this. And we got about 15, 20 minutes. And I want to just tell our audience tonight, you're watching a very special live Mac Files Monday night special live with my dear friend Michael Jaffe. At the very end, we're going to take about 5-10 minutes of questions, but not right now. Just hang on to your questions for Mike. Mike, this threat, and this is what drives me crazy with the anti-Semitism of this nation. The American people that are saying the ugliest, hateful rhetoric against Jewish people do not realize that these same terrorists they're defending, these same monsters they're defending, these same animals they're defending would cut their heads off in 2 seconds because they don't just hate Jews, they do hate Christians, they hate America, they hate the world. They got, this is not, what was that I heard sometime? It's not just Jew-hating talk. The guy was making a joke about it. It's not a joke because, see, it's not just Jew-hating talk that they're saying. They ultimately want the destruction of anything that does not bow itself down to Islam. That's what Islam means. It means submission. It literally means to submit. They want every religion, every movement, every group of people that does not submit to its rule and its jihad rule, they want it exterminated. And they don't care whether you're white, black, green, yellow, purple, or orange, or a mixture of the all six. They're going to cut your head off.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yes, largely yes. There are exceptions. There are now Arabs who are claiming that Hamas is actually anti-Muslim, and they're serious about it. They are saying that, I mean, you look, especially like people in Saudi Arabia feel like this. They feel insulted by Hamas, and they feel that Hamas insults Islam.
Interesting.
It mostly is people who it's kind of like, if you want revolution, you'll find a reason.
That's true.
Now, I think that it is up to the Arab world, if they're serious about living and coexisting in the modern world with all the benefits that come with it, they have to stand firm against this. Now, yeah, it's right that that the people who support Hamas, many of them would be killed by Hamas given the chance. They can't accept that. They don't see this. Their blind spot is their sense of superiority, of false superiority. That's their blind spot. They think they're being somehow morally superior by apologizing for these people. They think that, and then in another way, they are. You know how it's kind of like affirmative action in that you're exercising a kind of racism of low expectations. So basically, what these people who are apologizing for Hamas are saying is that they can't help it. They're saying that the Hamas, the race of Arabs represented by Hamas, can't help being savages. So don't try. And that's the racism of low expectations.
Absolutely, my friend.
They feel it so strongly. That's why the biggest racists are on the left.
Great point. That is an excellent observation. I got a couple of quick fire questions for you. We talked about this before the show a little bit. I want you to tell people what you told me about the term Ali Akbar, because we've heard that term. We heard it when the guy cut the... I'll say that again.
Allahu Akbar.
Thank you. You said it better than I did. We Southerners, we have I see that's why this north-south thing works. We give you the yang, you give us the yin. So you help us out with that. But on a serious note, it was intriguing what you told me what that means, because a lot of people believe that it just means God is great, and it's not what it means. And it's really an insult to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because tell us what it defines, what they're really saying when they say that.
Allahu Akbar means God is greater. Literally, God is greater, as in God is greater than, as in my God is greater than your God. So when in their bloodlust there are Arab pogroms against other people, whether it's the Nazarene or there's the Jew, they shout as they're plunging the knife, they shout Allahu Akbar. And what they're saying is, this is the proof that our God beats your God. For one thing, it's a pagan saying.
Yes.
Because if you believe there's only one God, you wouldn't say that.
That's right, my friend.
But these people are largely, there's a very kind of primitive concept of paganism that runs through parts of Arab society that belies Islam, because Islam is a monotheistic religion. Classical Islam is that the God of Ishmael is the same God as the God of Isaac, and that God is the God of Abraham. That's hence the Abraham Accords, which promote peace. But Allahu Akbar is a denial of that.
So true. That's interesting.
So when you hear Allahu Akbar, it's not saying God is great. It's not submitting oneself to God for the sake of God's glory. It is not that at all. It is stating as a war cry. It is stating, we beat you because God is with us. And that's one of the reasons they can't stand. They can't stand the United States, and they can't stand Israel.
So true, my friend. One final question, and before we're going to open it up, I'm going to keep you about 10 minutes. And I want to thank you so much. And I want to tell you, I'm going to probably be calling on you quite a bit over the next few weeks, several weeks. So get your Mac file. I'll send you a T-shirt you can wear. I'm a Mac file regular now. But serious question, and I ask you this too, and I want you to chime in on this tonight about our nation. There's been a lot of talk, and I guess it's the cynic in me. You have to blame the late Marjorie Turnage McDonald for that. I don't trust politicians. Politicians come from two words, poly and ticked. It means many bloodsuckers. And the way I look at it is, if a politician is telling you it's raining, don't bring your umbrella. If he's telling you it's not going to rain, you better get an ark. I'm hearing a lot of talk from our government, and I hope I'm not hearing a bunch of BS. But they're pledging all this support. They're telling us that, you know, if we got Israel's back and all this. You're an American, my friend. Do you believe our government is, when push comes to shove, when the crunch time comes, because the crunch time ain't come yet,
Right.
because this is still relatively new, and I've talked to several people, and I respect Prime Minister Netanyahu a lot. I do. I know he's not a perfect leader, no more than we got perfect leaders here. We just don't. We're not going to ever have perfect leaders. But I think for this time of Israel's history, he's the best you could have right now, we hope, leading the nation. But my point is this.
Okay.
When his goodwill runs out, because he's got pretty much the world, except for China and Russia, of course, behind him to go root these terrorists out. But do you think there comes a time when our nation stops giving the blather and they're, you know, you brought up something a while ago, and you can sort of allude to this. They're not just giving Iran $6 billion. They've been giving Israel's enemies billions and billions and billions. And now all of a sudden, they're silent on the very source of this, which I believe was Iran behind it. And it's sort of a quandary they got, because you can't go out and tell your friend that you just gave $20 billion to, hey, cut the terrorism off, and then tell Israel we got your back too. It's sort of, we in the South, we have a term for that. It's called bullshit. It smells bad on the South Shore today, Mike. I'm just saying. But what's your take on that from your perch? Because I don't trust our government, man. I don't trust this government to be with Israel. I don't trust anybody to stand with her through this all the way through. That's just my opinion. That is just Chris's opinion.
That's prudent. That's just plain prudent, because would it be difficult to trust any government right now, except I would say maybe Poland right now actually is surprisingly resilient in its in how it handles things. But yeah, it's you have basically a government, if you consider this the Biden administration, the continuation of the Obama administration. The Obama administration had many people who were basically, or practically speaking, lobbying for Iran in the West Wing, and in the White House, and advising President Obama. Now, there's a lot of money that goes through Iran, and Iran has clearly some influence in the Democrat Party right now. Iranian interests have influence on Democrats.
Yes.
And so yes, it's very hard to see how long that basketball can be held underwater.
That's a great analogy. That is an excellent analogy.
Yeah. But however, right now, if there might be other influences affecting the administration also in favor of getting rid of Hamas, because Hamas is ISIS.
Right.
And that point has been made, and very convincingly. And in fact, the funny thing is, the people who are trying to apologize for ISIS don't even deny that.
That's a great point.
And so if one thing about the administration is that they defeated ISIS, then they can't let Hamas win. Now, what is not letting Hamas win? Well, not letting Hamas win might also mean letting Hamas survive politically, and that's very bad. So I trust the current administration to remain supportive for a limited time.
I'm with you on that.
Israel has to go in now. Basically, they've had time to wait. They've had time, and I believe they've used every moment to collect intelligence, to run through the models, to run through simulations, to train their top people, and to and to give them every advantage, every equipment and strategy advantage.
Let me ask you.
Unfortunately, there's a time when it's go time, and it's go time.
Let me ask you.
I expect them to go in certainly by this weekend. I expect them to the ground invasion to start. If it doesn't, I don't know if it ever will.
Yeah.
They have to be able to. I would hope that they've gotten some intelligence by now about where the hostages are, if they're still alive. I have my doubts as to whether they're alive, but
Me too.
They have to go in with bunker busters, with special weapons that will destroy the tunnels from the surface. They can't afford to go into every inch of tunnel unless they have, and it's very possible because this is Israel we're talking about, they might have developed a new kind of robot that can clear out the tunnels.
It's very true. Let me ask you this, and folks, by the way, if you're listening to us tonight, we're going to keep Mike on for about 10 more minutes. We can't keep him till midnight, but we're going to keep him for 10 more minutes. You got a question for him, questions only, in YouTube and Facebook. Please send them to me, and I'll ask him. I got a question for you, and I know this may not be the time to ask it because Israel's in the middle of a war, and I know that you've heard it. My question to you is, what do you say to those that are questioning why this attack was done in such a surprise manner? Because it was on the 50th anniversary of Yom Kippur War of 73. And of course, I've watched that movie Golda, and I already knew about it. And it was an interesting movie because it details basically the draw up to the time that Egypt and Syria launched this surprise attack on Israel's most holy day. And again, there were so many eerie parallels between the two, the 50-year anniversary of that, in this war. And a lot of people are just simply asking, why did Israel's intelligence miss it? Did they miss it? Or why? And Prime Minister Netanyahu, the first press conference, he said, look, he said, this stuff about Egypt warning us that this was coming is poppycock, basically. He said it did not happen. I'm just curious from your perch, because I don't like Monday morning quarterbacking these things, because, look, I don't know, in the fog of war, Michael, you know this, and I know this, look, things in war, when things like this happen, it's easy to point fingers and say, well, this dot was not dotted or this T wasn't crossed. And I hate seeing that because, see, people's lives are at stake. People are dead. Children are dead. Families are dead. Moms are dead. Dads. And I know that there will come a time when that can be discussed. But I'm just a general question to you. What do you say to people about that? And what's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that intelligence in general, security-focused intelligence is probably the hardest job in the world.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing as the economists trying to predict how economies will run. They're all wrong. There's not a single economist who is able to encapsulate everything that happens in an economy because there are just too many factors. What happened? I don't know what happened. I don't know what didn't happen. I do know what didn't happen. What didn't happen is that the incursion wasn't stopped at the fence. Now, why did that happen? I don't know. What weakness did they exploit? I don't know. I believe that they found a weakness and they exploited it, a technical weakness, because I know that the fence is an electronic fence. It's supposed to be able constantly in contact. Sensors on the fence are constantly monitored. Now, what happened to those sensors? What happened to the monitors? I don't know. My daughter served as an observer. When she did her time in the army, she observed the fences with Egypt. And basically, they went out, and when someone wanted to cross the fence, probably like a Somali refugee, okay, they helped the refugee come across if they didn't get shot on the Egyptian side first. But the thing is, they had a handle on what happened at that fence. That fence isn't just a bit of, it's not just a bit of, razor wire.
Right.
It has sensors that communicates with different parts of the infrastructure. I don't know what happened.
Got you.
But I know that Israel immediately had to take care of business.
They did.
You need government to take care of your business.
I think that's a perfectly said statement, and I totally agree with everything you just said. I've got 3 good questions for you real quick. Liz Goldman from Facebook tonight, she says, Mike, what kind of numbers are we talking about as to how many Hamas terrorists there are? That's not a bad question because that number is a moving number. You have any idea how many Hamas terrorists there may be?
No. I think that, let's put it this way, the Gaza population is, I believe, about 1.5 million, or maybe it's 2 million, or maybe it's 2.5 million. I'm not sure. I don't know how many people are on Hamas's payroll, but I would say it's probably at least 30,000.
Okay.
More. Probably.
That's an army. That's an army. Yeah. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, and right, and you also have a lot of youth who take part in their activities. So it's not just the people who get money for it, although the people who ultimately, let's say, those who get captured doing terrorist acts and end up in prison, and those who are killed get stipends.
Right.
That's the pay for slay that both the PA and Hamas do. That's what Donald Trump tried to pull the money from. That Joe Biden ended up resuming the cash flow, even though that the Hamas and the PA were still doing pay for slay. So it's hard to say because they get cooperation and participation by a big number of at least the men, and I would say maybe a significant portion of the women.
Okay, interesting point, man. We got some good questions coming at you real quick here. Julia Carter's question: what do you expect from Iran, Lebanon, and Turkey in this war? Do you see them? I know they're probably interfering already somewhat. They're not going to publicly. Do you see them getting into this more? And I'm going to ask you a blunt question, and it's a tough one. I don't think me and you need to want to know the answer to this, but it's worth discussing just a little bit. Does this have the potential, at least, of turning into a Mideast full-blown war between nations, not just Hamas and Israel?
That's a tough question because of the differing forces at work right now in the Middle East. You have firstly, you have, as a legacy of the Abrahamic Accords, you have some of these Arab governments who truly, sincerely want peace with Israel because they can't imagine being under the boot of Iran, and that's what they face. And at this point, it's a binary decision. It's either going to be a confederation or some kind of alliance with Israel, or it's going to be domination by Iran.
It's a great point.
And a lot of these, even the dictators and the tyrants, can't survive underneath Iran's boot. And also the other thing is that Iran might actually be in a very weakened state right now, even with the money they've got, because they've got a big population that doesn't like the leadership. And now the problem is that Obama, when there was a revolt during Obama's years, he ignored it. And there was actually an uprising in Iran that he refused to support.
Right.
So yeah, it's what do these Arab governments, what do they perceive? What are the possibilities? They have to be thinking about all of these possible outcomes. And if the United States were smart, they would basically do everything they could to convince these Arab governments that they stand squarely behind Israel, including Israel's effort to wipe out Hamas, if they were smart, because these people don't like Hamas, because Hamas is Iran. And Hamas is the kind of soulless, inhumane barbarians that they don't want on their territory either. Now, is it possible that Turkey will enter the fight? I don't think Turkey is going to enter any fights right now. I think that even Iran would rather not get involved right now. They're too close to a bomb.
That's so true.
To want to get into a fight. They're not going to. This is a problem, by the way. They're not going to jeopardize their final last lap rush to enrichment, to uranium enrichment, and the construction of a weapon. And yet, this is what Israel has to face now.
Yep.
According to, again, I've mentioned Scott Adams before because I think he actually has a good handle on a lot of different things. Scott Adams said that, Scott Adams is the creator of Dilbert. He's also runs his own podcast. I thoroughly recommend the Scott Adams. It's called Coffee with Scott Adams. He says that in a year's time, the leadership, the political, religious leadership of Iran will fall because Israel can't afford to let them live. I think he has a point.
Interesting. I've got a couple of good questions for you coming out. I'm going to Dennis Floyd's question is about ground troops, and if you mentioned something a while ago about Israel does not need anybody's help. Israel fights her own battles. Do you believe that if somebody offered ground troops that they would accept it or say no?
I don't know.
Okay.
Because it all depends on how things proceed. I can't imagine. I think Israel will do everything it can to avoid using foreign troops. And I'm not talking about volunteers. I'm not talking about individual volunteers.
I got you.
But there are individual volunteers. By the way, Brian Mast, the former congressman from Stewart, Florida, who this week showed up. No, he's a current representative. He showed up in his IDF uniform.
Yeah, I saw that. Now,
he is an example of one of these volunteers who, and Israel has them in their ranks. Individuals can volunteer on an individual basis, but they're not going to. What they don't want is for some country to offer up troops who aren't individual volunteers. That they don't want. It's a bad look. It is a fodder for some very nasty accusations, and Israel does not want to touch that.
Okay.
Now, if there's a situation in which Americans, specifically American lives, are involved, I could see them benefiting from the expertise of American hostage experts,
right?
Hostage situation experts. But I think they will avoid any offer of like a platoon of troops or a battalion.
Would you think a special force unit would be accepted?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. But it would have to be with the caveat that only if we're talking about specifically American hostages.
Gotcha.
Now,
I get you.
If they end up rescuing non-American hostages, like Israeli hostages, I think that would be a wonderful thing. But I don't think Israel wants to push that.
Interesting discussion. Good question. Corey Aguilar is asking tonight from Facebook. Amy, I'm going to get to your question and Cleo's. I'm going to y'all's are about the same. I'm going to ask him about those, but I want to ask Corey's question. She says, do you believe that Hamas is trying to sneak the hostages out of Gaza via the tunnels? Because there's a lot of silence about these hostages, and the purpose of a hostage is negotiation. And I'm with you, though. I have to tell you, I'm not too confident these hostages are even going to make it out alive, Mike. I'm trying to be optimistic. I don't want to go out there and say we just believe all these hostages are going to get killed. I would ever even dream of doing that. But in my deepest recesses of my heart, I'm praying for their families, because this is not a good place that any of these people are. And there are 199 of them. What's your thoughts on the tunnels, though?
I don't think these hostages are getting out of Gaza.
I don't either.
And it's not just, they're not just negotiation, they're specifically human shields.
That's right.
And they are there to physically protect wherever they are, whether they're in the tunnels, whether they're in the headquarters of Hamas, wherever they are. They are there to physically protect the terrorists. And that's their purpose. At first they thought, well, we'll trade a few for some prisoners. But at this point, they know that's not going to wash anymore. It's not going to be Gilad Shalit times 200.
Gotcha.
Because that was how they overstepped. That was their tactical mistake, was by taking too many hostages. And they've said that, by the way. I've heard it said on social media that some of the leaders of Hamas have said, we took too many.
Wow. Roger Hooker's question is tied to Corey's, and I'll just ask it because you may have just answered it, but just for the respect of Roger, because he asked it. Does the water and electricity, turning that off, does the Hamas terrorists even care about that? Because his question is that a negotiating tool to get the hostages out? I don't think they care. I don't think that bothers them a bit, because the Hamas people don't give you know what about the Palestinian people. They don't care they're without water and electricity or not. They can give two blanks in the wind less about that. Am I accurate on that?
I think so. I think, though, that, let's put it this way. I think that Israel had to make a statement, and that is, is Israeli life so cheap that someone can so brazenly take it, and we will still provide them with utilities? I think there was a certain kind of just sense that this is madness. These are people dedicated, who have demonstrated dedication to our extinction.
That's right.
Are we going to provide them with electricity?
Come on, buddy. That's a great observation and point. Absolutely.
So I think they had, but the other thing is, I think it was a tactical step to basically make life very difficult under Hamas. So Israel made the call. Okay, people have to move south because we need the leeway to operate in the north part of the country at first. So we want the population to move south. So I think that was a way of helping to get the population in the mood, so to speak, to get moving.
Interesting. I'm going to let this be the final question. Jamie, I'm going to answer your question after we let Mike go here, but I want to deal with Cleo's question and Amy Miller's. They're sort of similar. First question, Cleo said, is the Israeli people, the Jewish people of Israel tonight, and really worldwide, do they fully support Prime Minister Netanyahu's efforts right now, the Jewish people? Amy Miller's question is interesting, and hers is sort of tied to that because she's speaking of the blowback. She's speaking of the blowback and the pushback against Israel. How does that affect their success in taking out Hamas? Because see, I think the two sort of it's very ironic because I think that he's got. I had a dear friend of mine. He lives in Hawaii. He said this last Monday night when we had him on, and he said that Benjamin Netanyahu pretty much got an open check right now because he's got a moral. I think the world looks at this and they see. Most people with a brain, most people with moral clarity see the evil. They see what is good and evil here. Not that Israel's perfect, not that Benjamin Netanyahu's perfect, not that everything Israel does is right, but I'm just saying in this case, you've got a clear-cut, in-your-face picture of morality and barbarism.
Yes,
but it's the blowback hurting Israel's success. And Cleo's question is a good one. How does the Jewish people view I keep calling him President, Prime Minister Netanyahu's office right now?
Well, in Israel, you have, I'm sure you know, there is an effort to make it a more constitutional grounding, and that starts with taking away the unlimited, unconstrained power of the judiciary.
Right.
And that's something that the current reform wanted to do. Now, sometimes it's hard to find people to make sense in confusing times, and these are confusing times. How is it that that someone who supports basically an oligarchy of lawyers having control, final say over legislation, and saying that's how we protect democracy?
Right.
Okay, I'm just trying. Why am I pointing that out? Because common sense doesn't always rule. So at this point, the common sense would be support the prime minister. He has a job to do. When his job is done, start, calling the dogs.
Right.
Okay, but so it's hard to say. You have a lot of Jews demonstrating on college campuses. I hate to say young and stupid, but that's what they are. Many of them. They think they're marching to the drum of some kind of movement of enlightenment, and they're doing nothing of the sort. But but some of them, not, I would say, still a minority, a tiny minority, but still a very vocal minority, who are saying it's time to let Hamas go. It's time to stop the siege and stop the incursion, and before it starts.
Yeah.
Will this have blowback? I don't think so, because this is an existential. Right now, Netanyahu is dealing with an existential situation. This is whether Israel lives or dies.
Absolutely, buddy. Absolutely.
So he's gonna. I believe he's gonna keep pushing through. I hope that the American administration will continue to support that. I hope they show some spine for at least a month, because that's how long the minimum it's going to take. I might be wrong. Maybe they can do it sooner, but they have to start doing it.
Michael, we appreciate you being with us an hour and 10 minutes. I'm going to let you go tonight at this point. You've been such a camper for being with us this hour and 15 minutes, and I'm going to have you back on again, maybe in a few weeks. I'll reach out to you and we'll set something up. I'll be back in my nest as well. Listen, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to wrap us up tonight. Final thoughts. Great interview, great stuff tonight, and I appreciate the questions from the audience tonight, but thank you for your insight. This has been very enlightening. I've learned a lot just listening to you tonight about some of the inward thinkings of what's going on within the nation tonight of Israel, and I appreciate your candidness. I do, and I've always appreciated you. We loved you the first time you came on, and tonight was just excellent. We're going to have you on again, but I'm going to give you a chance to wrap us up and give us your final thoughts on what's going on in Israel tonight.
What's going on in Israel is quite basically the fight for Western civilization, and we see it based on the reactions around the world to the developments. We see it in the protests. We see it in some of the very positive, very heartwarming pronunciations of European leaders, despite being under pressure to say other things. They have said things in support of Israel. This is the fight for both Israel and the United States as the countries dedicated to the concept of human partnership with God. Human self-rule cannot be substituted with a monarchy. It cannot be substituted with an oligarchy. Self-rule is freedom of thought, but it can sometimes be challenged from within. Human society, or Western society, must be strong enough to handle those challenges from within. And it has plenty of tools to do that.
Absolutely. That's great.
And I would recommend that people arm themselves by reading those tools, reading some of those wonderful books, and these wonderful seminal works on the founding of the American founding, because the American founding is largely a updated vision of the what's the word I'm looking for? of the Hebrew Republic. The United States, I would say even more than Israel, is a modern legacy of the Hebrew Republic. And people should arm themselves with the knowledge and with the writings of great men and women who have written on this topic. And I wish I had my reading list in front of me. I don't have it up right now. I could rattle some off to you, but
maybe next time we'll deal with that subject. We might take the part of the show next time and let you do that. But it's been a pleasure tonight. And listen, our prayers are with you and your family, and our prayers for your safety and your family's safety over there in Israel tonight. And I just want to thank you again. This has been a great interview. And do you have anywhere people, if they want to contact you? I know that the Two Israel Project. Boy, how can people contact you outside the show?
Okay, there's a website called twoisraels.com.
Okay.
TWOISRAELS.com. There's a lot of material on the website. It is a project that I promote off and on, and it deals with the similarities of national mission between Israel and the United States, and the common roots, the common philosophical roots of the nations. I believe that America and Israel have a deeply shared destiny.
Yes, we do.
And
yes,
I believe that they in the best of situations, in the best of praxis, they help each other with their national missions.
Absolutely, my friend. Well, listen, I'm going to let you go from here. I'm going to say goodnight to these folks, and I appreciate you again for being with me tonight. I'll be in touch, and thank you so much again for a great interview tonight. Michael Jaffe, everybody, Two Israels. I'll be in touch, my friend. Thank you so much, and I'll be in touch soon. Thank you, Michael.
Okay.
Good night, my friend. Shalom. Michael Jaffe, everybody, put some fire in that house for him, and we're grateful for him tonight, and we hope that you enjoyed him. I sure did. I tell you what, folks, I think we've had some wonderful guests over the last week with this situation in Israel, and I think you got an education tonight about a lot of things, and I appreciate his candidness, and I appreciate the questions. I do want to answer a couple of questions that I did not really feel led to ask him about, but I will. Misha, your question about the start of the Psalm 83, Ezekiel 38 war. No, I do not believe that this is it, and I'll tell you why. Those are nations, plural. Israel's not fighting nations tonight. They're fighting Hamas. They're fighting a terrorist group within their own border. Ezekiel 38 speaks of the Battle of Armageddon. We've got a millions of things, not literally, but we've got a myriad of things to happen before Armageddon. The rapture of the church, the Antichrist basically coming on the scene, Israel signing a 7-year peace treaty with this man of sin, believing he's their Messiah. And in the middle of the week, Daniel says in Daniel 9, he'll break that covenant with her. He'll invade her for the first time. She'll be defeated militarily for the first time in her history. She will run and flee to Jordan from his wrath, and he will seek to destroy every Jew in this world, in that part of the world. It will be basically Israel's second Holocaust. And Zechariah talks about 5/6 of the Jewish population perishing during that time. And if they got 9 million in Israel, you do the math. That's a lot. There's going to be millions. It's going to be more than 6 this time. But it won't be just in Israel. The Antichrist and the spirit of anti-Semitism will seek to eradicate every Jew around the world, what's left of it at that point. We're not sure where the United States is going to be during that time. The Bible don't say anything about the United States, and that gives me great pause and concern that we may not even be around. But whatever it looks like, we know that those things have got to take place, and then Israel will sort of filter back into Jerusalem. Tidings from the east will disturb the Antichrist. He'll leave his campaign of destruction to go east and north. Tidings out of the north and east will disturb him and trouble him, according to Daniel 11. He will fight those wars, and I'm not sure how long those wars will take, but at the end of this 7-year period of tribulation, he will turn his attention back to Israel. There will be demon spirits, you can read this in Revelation 16, 13 through 16, that will come out of the Mediterranean Sea. They will go forth to the kings of the earth, the Bible says, and deceive them. They will throw their lot in with the Antichrist, who will have all the hatred of hatred of Stalin, hatred of Haman, the hatred of Hitler, the hatred of this Hamas terrorist group. He will make Adolf Hitler look like a choir boy, basically, who plunged the world in unspeakable evil for 7 years. This man will make that look pale in comparison to what he's going to do. And he will march upon Jerusalem with those armies. And at the end of the 7-year tribulation period, that is when you see Ezekiel 38 and Psalms 83. So to answer your question, Misha, no, I do not believe it's the beginning of that. I do not, and I hope that answers your question. Jamie's statement, I want to deal with her. She says, this reminds me of Benghazi. Do you think our intelligence is pulling the same stand-down BS that happened in 2011? Jamie, that's hard to say. I think Mike sort of alluded to the fact that, we don't know what our government's going to do. Your point's well taken, because that stand-down order it was actually 2012, 9/11 of 2012, led to the death of 13 American lives. And I think one of the most grievous things I see happening tonight in our government is that there is very little activity to get these Americans out. There's been some. There was a Republican governor, I'm not sure if it was DeSantis or somebody, that flew over there, took his plane, and got 207 Americans out. I've been hearing numbers up to 600 to 800 Americans are trapped in Israel tonight. I don't know how true that is. I'm going to be following up with that this week as we do some more specials. We didn't do one today. Probably won't do one tomorrow, but Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're going to probably do another update. We're going to pull John McTurnan back in here and let him talk with you about it. I tell you, your question is a good question, because I guess only God knows what Joe Biden's going to do about this and his government. I will tell you this that disturbed me tonight. Kamala Harris was out there moaning and crying like a bunch of crocodile tears over the death of a Palestinian child. She put it up on her Twitter feed, and she claimed that her and her husband was grieving the loss of this Palestinian child. I wonder if Kamala Harris and her husband was grieving the loss of nearly 3,500 that were injured, and I think 1,300 to 1,400 dead Israelis, many of which were children, women, and elderly people, innocent civilians. I wonder if her and her husband were grieving the loss of that. One child, she acted like this was the end of Armageddon, that Israel had killed this one child. You heard what Michael Jaffe said tonight, folks. These terrorists are literally sticking babies up in front of their headquarters. They don't care. They don't care. I'm going to say it again tonight, folks, in no uncertain terms. Every ounce of blood that's shed in Gaza from this point on, folks, every ounce of blood. And I do not condone, look, I hate war. This is why God hates war. This is why President Trump tried to keep us out of these wars like this. This war was not perpetrated by Israel. This was brought on to Israel by Hamas. Hamas started this. Every ounce of blood that is shed in Gaza tonight, folks, regardless of where it comes from, is on Hamas. It is on Hamas. It is not Israel. You heard the lies that Michael described that the world is perpetrating. I hate to say this tonight, folks. The church is too. The church is too. The church is too. So, with a government like that, who knows, Jamie? Who knows? Who knows? And I'm with you, though. I do believe there's a stand-down order, and I don't doubt that they would stand down. But interesting. We hope we answered everybody's question. I think we got Dennis. I hope I got to your question. I mentioned the troops. Roger, your question was answered. We got Jamie's, Julius, Cleo's, Amy Miller. Good to see you tonight. Misha, we got your question. And so forth. Did you enjoy Michael Jaffe tonight? I've got a lot more to say about this, folks. I'm at an hour and 28 minutes, and I'm not feeling the best tonight. I'm going to let you go for tonight, and I'm going to pick this up tomorrow night. I may just do a show by myself. I want to address some of the anti-Semitism of the church. We've really sort of skirted around that issue, but I'm going to deal with some of this stuff that's being posted on Telegram rooms and Facebook pages and stuff. We sort of dealt with it a little bit this morning on the Bible study. I will address it more. But I'm going to say this as I close tonight. I say it in no uncertain terms. If you say with your mouth that you're a Christian, and you claim that you are this bastion of Christian faith, and you're the judge of all souls, and you're the judge of everybody else, and you've got this moral right to tell everybody else what to do and what not to do, and I've seen a lot of this lately, self-righteousness. And then you turn around and trash Israel, and you spread these lies that you just heard Michael Jaffe talk about tonight. And see, I'm going to just throw one other term in. When you hear the word Zionist, when you hear that term, Zionist, folks, that's a slur. That's a slur. It's a slur to the Jewish people. That's what Hitler called him before he gassed him to death. That's what anti-Semites call them, that don't respect God's chosen people. They don't respect the Bible. The only thing I disagree with Michael slightly on tonight, I'm not a big fan of Scott Adams. I've seen some things in Scott Adams' stuff that's very anti-Semitic, and I think it's the same guy he's talking about that the Rapture even got rid of because Eric Trump said he's posting anti-Semitic stuff. So you can listen to him if you want to. My suggestion to you, stay away from that. But that's the only little caveat that I heard tonight that I did not totally bear witness with Mike. Everything else, 100% on board with. He was nailing it to the wall tonight. But I'm going to nail it to the wall here at the end. If you're going to say, if you're going to claim that you're a Christian and you're a child of God, you need to start acting like it. It starts with not posting anti-Semitic garbage and anti-Semitic lies and anti-Semitic terminology that would make a Jew-hating Nazi proud. He said it to me before the show, Hamas is the new Nazis. And he's right. But folks, there's a lot of Nazis running around America tonight that's not terrorists, but they are social media terrorists. And some of the stuff that's being posted, instead of people being ashamed about it, other people are applauding it and telling these people they're truth tellers. No, they're not. They're damnable liars. Can I be blunt with you? Just talk straight to you. You're just a damnable liar. And a demonically inspired one at that. And I'm going to tell you this tonight. You're going to stand before an almighty God one day. His son is Jesus Christ, by the way. His son came from Judea, from the line of the tribe of Judah. You're going to stand before him. And I want you to look him in the face and tell him how the Zionists control the banking industries. And I was so proud of Michael. I didn't know what he was going to talk about, this mafia stuff. Folks, he destroyed every lie that you've heard concerning the history of Israel as it relates to this crap mafia thing that's written in books by, again, damnable liars and damnable heretics and damnable teachers and damnable false prophets. If my anger seems a little up, it is. I wished I felt better tonight. I'd probably do a little fired up screaming, but I don't feel as good as I should. But I think you get the message. Damnable heresy. You tell the Lord Jesus one day the reason you didn't support Israel, the reason you posted what you did and all your Jew-hated talk and all your anti-Semitism that well, the mafia controlled Israel and the Zionists controlled the banking industry. I want to see you do that. I won't be your judge on that throne. Trust me, I won't be, but he will. And he's Jewish. So you might want to rethink what you're doing on this earth. And you better hear what Michael Jaffe was saying tonight, folks. This is a fight for Western civilization. This is our fight. This ain't just Israel's fight. This is not just the Jewish people's fight, folks. This is our fight. I'm going to tell you where I stand on it. Unequivocally. And I told you this Sunday morning. I don't care if we get down to 2 people on this network, folks. You see this blue? I'm wearing this blue all as much as I can. Because I'm praying for the peace of Jerusalem every night. I'm praying for the safety of the Jewish people. I pray for the Palestinian people. I do. They chose this path by putting Hamas over them. 58% of the Palestinian people support Hamas, folks. They support this barbarism. Don't let the world lie to you. Don't let the church lie to you. And stop listening to YouTube channels that are lying to you. And stop listening to people that hate Israel. Get away from it. You can either stand on the right side of this, and you better make sure you're on the right side of this argument tonight. I know that I am. I'm on the right side of it because I'm on God's side, because He's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whose surname is Israel. And I'll leave you with that tonight. And may the Lord bless you on this Monday night. Put some fire in that house. MacFilesForum@gmail.com if we didn't get to a question you wanted to ask. I'll see you tomorrow on the Mac Files, probably tomorrow night. Not sure who we're going to have. It may just be me. God help you all. Whoa, God help you all. Lord have mercy. Put some fire in that house for Michael Jaffe if you were grateful that he was with us tonight. What a great guest. See you later, guys. Have a good night, everybody. Be blessed out there. Good night. Shalom.